So if we have clearly seen in the previous program when we have created student class and when we have created teacher class, if we clearly compare, we have same get id, get name, get address. The only different thing is we have marks in place of salary. If you go for teacher class, if you can clearly see, this is teacher class, we have salary over here. When you go for student class, that is student.py, marks. Other than that, everything is same, right? So now, why can't we reuse it? Why doesn't he use it for the advantage? Yes, we can use it. So instead of creating a new class together, we can reuse the code. So that is where now I'll just try to reuse it. So I cannot continue here. If I want to continue, I should just make sure I rename, I just keep comment of every file. But what happens, I can create a new file where I just give this thing as a student class, but it is version 2.0. So I just give it as student class version 2.0 instead of creating another file and extracting from student, import student. We just make it as version 2.0 and just we use both of them because both of them are in same location. We can just directly give from teacher. I just import teacher model first. That means I just import the teacher class because teacher is your file name. You can clearly see that if the file name doesn't match, you get an error over here. So you can just save this according to your interest. I can just give inhh or I'll just give inheritance. It will be very much easier. Okay, inheritance.py. Fine. Now I just create a class called as student because now when I create a class of student, automatically it is expecting for some objects. So what do you try to do? You just try to give the object as teacher class. Now you just try to give the methods here. So set marks, get marks. Why shouldn't we use those things? Yes, we can use it here. So first let's try to give, or I can just save it as or give the doc string here final demo. You can just save this thing because it is already saved as student.py in the previous file. I just name it as another file so that we can easily reuse all the methods. Now I just define the first method name as I want to set the marks. So I just give set marks and I pass self and I just give the other argument or object as marks. Then I just wanted to declare the marks. So self.marks, because already teacher class is having id, name and address. The only other thing we are not having is marks because instead of marks we have salary over there. So whatever I want, I only get them, right? So I just give get marks of self. So we need to go for return get marks. Return get marks. No, return self.marks because get marks is the method. You just need to return the marks. So what we have done, so when we have created class student of teacher, the student class is derived from the teacher class. So if you clearly see the method here, the student class is derived from teacher class. So now what happens? So whatever the methods which are present in teacher class, that is get id, get name, set id, set name, address, salary, everything, we are taking all those methods. So that is where it is derived from the teacher class so that we can access all of them. That is the reason I have defined. Once we write all of this, so we can just make sure that we are using only two methods which are not available in teacher class. What are they? Set marks and get marks. So now if we write only these methods in student class, we can use the student class also, right? Now we are combining both of them. Now we can just create an instance, not here. So when we create an instance at the end, we can directly access them. So just create an instance. It will be very much easier because already teacher class is having all of them, right? Set id, get id, you can just refer. So when you go for teacher class, instead of address, instead of salary, we are creating two new methods. What are they? We have created, the file is inheritance. Yeah. Set marks and get marks. We are creating the two additional methods. So whatever we want, we just use them. So I create an instance like s is equal to student. So when I give s is equal to student, so when you save, first let me execute this. I'll go for directory of yes. Bingo. You see, you got address, ID, marks, name, salary, all of the get salaries, set address, set ID, set marks. You got everything. Now, whatever we require, we just throw it. Whether if first we need to store the details, right? So, first we need to store the data. For that, we need to use the get methods, right? Sorry, set methods. Store data into the instance. So, what we need to do first, we'll give yes dot first we need to go for set ID, because I want to set ID for the student. So, set ID of, let me give now, let's go for 3 because we already used 1 and 2. We can use it, it's fine. So, first I want to get the name for the student. So, set name for the student. The name I want to give it as Ramu. Then we have given name also. Then we need to get the address, right? So, I just set address. So, set address I want to give again as next time as Vizag. Now, even if you want to use address, we have used address, name we have used, ID we have used. So, the next thing you want to use is only marks, because you want to use only marks because it's a student, you don't want to use the salary. So, I just need to give it as 900. Good. So, now we have stored the data into the instances. The next thing is we need to retrieve the data. How do you retrieve the data? By using get methods. Simple. So, instead of writing in another file, if we could have created a student class with these 2 extra methods, it's done. Now, let me prove it. Retrieve the data from the instance and display. So, we just make sure we give all the methods which are get methods. So, I just define print of ID is. So, print of ID is. So, you just need to make sure very clearly yes dot set ID is for giving input, get ID is for getting the result. You can clearly see if the methods are being called, that means half of your program is clearly correct. Now, when you can see the result, it will be very much easier for you. That's made, instead of writing all those lines of code, our work will be reduced, which is very much helpful in real cases. I'll prove it in a couple of minutes. So, address is yes dot get address. So, you can get the address over there. And final thing is print of, you want to see the marks, right? You just need to give marks. So, marks are so that we can see the marks. So, how do you get that? Yes dot get address is for the address and finally for the marks. Now, when you save and execute this, you need to see ID is 3, name is Ramu, address is Vizag, marks are 900. You should see the result. Student object has no attribute marks. Why? Let me just cross check where we have given it as wrong. So, set marks, get marks, set marks of 900. So, where did we mention the marks here? We just gave self.marks, right? How we could access over there? It's clearly wrong, right? So, never ever make such mistakes, because when you are passing the object, make sure you just pass the address with the help of self, because self will collect that. That is the reason it will clearly have thrown you student object has no attribute marks. How does you accept? So, ID is 3, name is Ramu, address is Vizag. So, that's how you are able to access every methods from teacher class, and whatever you want, you can create it extra instead of writing all those things. So, in that way, we have created student class from teacher class. That's where we are inheriting the methods from that. So, this is called as inheritance. That means deriving new classes from the existing classes, so that we can inherit all the members of the existing class, which is nothing but inheritance. You have clearly understood, right? That's what we have given, class student of teacher, that is class derived of base class. So, that is how we take all the methods, and whatever we want, we can use it. Because generally in real-time usage, where the first thing is development becomes easier, you can see the code also becomes very less, the performance increases. That's where we can widely use in real-time scenarios. So, depending on usage, we can add additional methods, and that's where we'll understand how does constructor overriding can happen, how does single, multiple, multi-level differs. So, just make it very simple. You can compare what we have done here, and make sure whenever you are creating all these files, teacher file and student file, always check you should be in same location, because when you give class student, it is in desktop location. When you are giving this file from student, you should be in desktop location. So that is how you will revise the concept of modules and how do you make sure the inheritance, and instead of creating two different files, we have just inherited the properties. We can access all the methods and we can create our own methods. That's where we have clearly understood how does inheritance will be useful, and we'll be understanding about types of inheritance, that is single, multiple, multi-level, in the next set of videos. But make it very simple. First, you should be clear what is the difference in this inheritance file and what we have done with the student and teacher file. Because almost if the functionality is same, we should inherit it. That's what happens in real life scenarios.